This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Warrenville City Council regular meeting for Monday, September 20, 2021. In accordance with Governor Pritzker's disaster proclamation, Section 7E of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 120(7) or 120/7(e), and please mute if you are on the call. Thank you so much. And a determination by the mayor of the city of Warrenville, this meeting will be held virtually. At least one representative of the city will be at City Hall. Well, there are a couple. The virtual meeting can be viewed at City Hall for members of the public who do not wish to call in and listen to the virtual meeting from another location. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Brummel.
Here.
Alderman Anderson. Alderman Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Ashour.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here.
Alderman Davalos.
Here.
Alderman Goodman.
Here.
Alderman Krischel.
Here.
Alderman Widener. Alderman Widener. Alderman Wilson.
Here.
City Clerk Julie Clark here. City Treasurer Ann Behrens.
Excused.
City Attorney Brooke Lenneman.
Here.
City Administrator John Coakley.
Here.
Assistant City Administrator Christina White, she's here. Police Chief Ray Toronto.
Here.
Finance Director Kevin Dahlstrand.
Here.
Community and Economic Development Director Ron Menzer.
Here. Here.
Public Works Director Phil Kukler.
Here.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Also note it's the city's policy to require face coverings during all public meetings in City Hall, regardless of vaccination status and social distance from others. Okay, would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. This is the time that we always set aside for citizens' comments. We have one citizen this evening in the audience who wishes to speak, Mr. Bob Siebert.
Oh, jeez.
Welcome, Bob.
Bob Siebert, Albright Court. We have all heard the phrase, follow the science. So what does science say about TIF 3 and TIF 4? First, that millions of taxpayers' funds have been put at risk, over $4 million. In TIF 1, there was zero. Second, that some normal developers' costs have been shifted to the taxpayers. In TIF 1, there was zero. Number 3, that existing residential properties in the 2 districts not being developed have paid thousands of dollars in TIF taxes. This action shifts more of the developer's costs to all taxpayers. Example of this is the 90-year house on Ray Street that has paid $10,000 in the first TIF district and will pay over $12,000 in the current TIF district, and the house has had no redevelopment. Number 4, that the Warrenville Park District and the Warrenville Fire District are required to serve the new citizens without new revenue. This all existing taxpayers are obligated to pay these new costs or receive fewer services. How can the citizens be required to follow the science when the city council hides from the science?
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else here would like to speak? Seeing none, do we have any emails for this evening? Seeing none, and do we have anyone on the line? Any citizens that would like to make a comment at this point? All right, again, a reminder to please mute yourself if you're not speaking. We're having some background noise problems again. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to official and staff comments. I have a couple things this evening. One, until further notice, the City Council will meet remotely due to the resurgence of COVID-19 and the governor's recent mask mandate requiring face coverings regardless of vaccination status. Remote meetings are allowed in accordance with Public Act 101-0640 during the governor's current disaster proclamation. That's the bad news. The good news is we're celebrating this evening or this year or this week or just forever that Ron Minster has now been with us for 27 years. I thought there was a mistake. The decimal point was misplaced, but apparently not. Ron, it's been a great quarter century. You've accomplished a lot. You and your team have really made a huge difference in our community, and I thank you for your service, your loyalty, and your hard work. Okay, and then the last thing I have to say is to thank everyone who had anything to do with Art on the Prairie this weekend. We were lucky with the weather; it was gorgeous. The music was good. The music was good. The weather was excellent. The artists were talented. The crowd was congenial. It was a very, very nice time. So thanks to everyone who had anything to do with that, especially the Park District, which again did a masterful job of making it happen in a very positive way in our community. That's all I have for this evening. We'll go on to the clerk.
I have no report.
Thank you, Julie. And treasurer is excused. We'll go on to the aldermen, beginning with Alderman Anderson.
No comments tonight.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Ashour.
I'd like to thank Ron for his years of service. That's all. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Alderman Berry.
Thank you, Ron, for being in Warrenville all these years. I worked on the Plan Commission and now in the City Council, and I enjoyed all of your reports. Sometimes they're a little lengthy, but that's okay. You've done a great job, and I really appreciate everything that you've done. You've made Warrenville a community that we should all be very, very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Davalos.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate what the other aldermen have said about Ron. And as I go through town all the time, I see Ron's fingerprints everywhere, and they are good fingerprints. And I have learned so much from him, and being on the council and being on different commissions and teams. And I just feel fortunate to be serving with the whole staff. But tonight we're particularly honoring him. So thank you, Ron, so much.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Goodman.
I guess I should fourth. I would have said second. All of the thanks to Ron for his many years of service and hard work, his professionalism, and his knowledge about all things going on in the city are unequaled. And it is impressive to think of how long he has been at it. And we hope not to lose him soon, although I fear it won't be too long from things that he has said to us recently, but I don't want to think about that right now. I think I'd also like to second the comments about the art fair. I was able to attend that this weekend briefly, and I think the organizers did a nice job on a nice day. You know, the young lady with the guitar playing sounded absolutely wonderful. I think people were good at music in socially distanced fashion and seemed to be enjoying all the artwork. So I hope that it went very well.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Crisell.
Nothing additional other than thanks, Ron, for everything you do and all your dedication. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Widener. Alderman Widener is with us, is he not? Yes, he is. Alderman Widener, are you there? He did answer the roll, right? No?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll move on then to Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to Ron for so much education that he has given to me over my years on board. He helped me understand an awful lot about municipality growth and growing and what have you. So I wanted to thank him very, very much. One other just comment I'd like to make is I don't know how much TIF 1, 2, 3, and 4 had to do with science. I think they were decisions made for a totally different reason than science.
Thank you, Alderman. City Administrator.
Thank you. I would just add on to my comments of previous meetings that the city continues to follow all of the safety mitigations that are clear as we can find to prevent, or I shouldn't say prevent, to reduce the spread of COVID and to set an example for the community. And tonight, the policy or the plan is on the agenda to once again make the updates from the latest pronouncements from the state to try to keep in touch and keep up. I would just end by encouraging anyone and everybody who is not yet vaccinated, take a serious look at that information and please get vaccinated. I saw encouraging news today that it may not be long until the FDA will approve vaccinations for children as young as 5. So I give some hope for some of my family members who are not eligible yet. So thank you.
Thank you, John. City Attorney Letterman.
No report for me, thanks.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to the approval of
Mayor,
the agenda for this evening. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Mayor Bromer, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I apologize for being late. And I just, before I approve the agenda, I wanted to thank Ron for his years of service. I've worked with him for a long time, and he's contributed many fine attributes to the city of Warrenville, connected many trails, and really been resolved in trying to maintain the character of Warrenville that we all love. So thank you, Director Menser. It's been a pleasure working with you. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for the September 20th, 2021 City Council regular meeting.
Second, Alderman Wilson.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anybody want to make any changes to the agenda? Please speak up and identify yourself.
Mayor, this is Alderman Anderson. I'd like to pull item D.
I'm sorry, item D as in David?
Yep.
Okay. The motioner and the seconder agree to that change in the agenda?
Motioner agrees.
Second agrees.
Okay, anyone else with the change to the agenda? Okay, may I have a roll call then, please?
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Crisell,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. The agenda is approved as amended. We have 2 sets of minutes that need approval also. Alderman Widener, would you like to make that motion?
Certainly. Thank you. I motion to approve the minutes of the September 7th, 2021 City Council regular meeting and to approve the minutes of the September 13th, 2021 Community Development Committee meeting.
Alderman Wilson seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of those minutes? Again, please identify yourself and speak up. Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thank you, Julie. We'll move on to the amended consent agenda for this evening. Item 6A, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and pass resolution R2021-53, approving task order number 3 with Terracon Consultants Incorporated for Lust Stage 1 Site Environmental Investigation Services for OTRS number 2 in an amount of $43,600. B, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and pass resolution R2021-54, approving the amended and restated intergovernmental agreement between the City of Warrenville and the Warrenville Park District regarding the lease of city property for Harding Field. C, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and pass resolution R2021-55, approving a contract with Engineering Resources Associates Incorporated for design engineering services for the 2022 road program in the amount of $46,650 plus reimbursable expenses. E, accept staff recommendation and approve the revised COVID-19 mitigation plan. F, receive and file minutes of the Environmental Advisory Commission meeting held on May 18th, 2021. G, receive and file minutes of the Environmental Advisory Commission meeting held on June 15th, 2021. H, receive and file minutes of the Tourism and Arts Commission meeting held on June 17th, 2021. I, receive and file the minutes of the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting held on August 10th, 2021. J, receive and file report of invoices paid up to September 15th, 2021 in the amount of $49,837.56. K, authorize expenditures for invoices due on or before October 4th, 2021 in the amount of $366,020.57. And L, receive and file report of master debit card expenditures for the month of August 2021 in the amount of $10,621.90.
Alderman Widener moves to approve the agenda as presented by Mayor David Brummel.
Second, Alderman Davalos.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Wilson? Uh-oh.
Alderman Wilson, you are muted.
Okay, I am now, think I'm here. Aye.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I pushed the wrong button.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Not the
Okay.
first time.
Motion carries. The consent agenda as amended has been approved. We're going to return to item 6D. Alderman Anderson, did you wish to bring that forward and make the motion, or would you prefer someone else to do it?
If someone else could.
Okay, would someone else make that motion then, please?
This is Alderman Goodman. I would like to make a motion to accept the Community Development Committee recommendation and 1, endorse the findings contained in the August 31, 2021 Warrenville Housing Action Plan prepared by the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning Council. And 2, authorize staff to pursue opportunities to implement its recommendations within the context of existing and future community development department work plan priorities.
May we have a second, please?
Second, Alderman Davalos.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Discussion. We'll begin again with Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to just take a minute so we can have a clarifying discussion. And I think Director Menser will be able to clarify my question concerns. You know, when I read the resolution, which I recognize I'd already voted on at the last meeting, but when we say endorse and accept the findings, when I think back to the conversation that we had, I think there were several aspects of the findings that that it felt like the presentation was kind of the beginnings of a discussion. I think there were a lot of things we all found interesting and compelling, but there were more things that we wanted to kind of understand and see the direction we were going to go. And then when I then went back and read the actual findings, and it had things like hire an independent market analyst to determine the market absorption for the senior and middle market housing, examine the building codes, et cetera. There were very clear tactics that it felt premature for us to say, yes, we want to do that exact thing, which I think is probably not what we're saying with this resolution, but I just wanted some clarification if we were going all the way to saying, yes, we're going to do these things, or simply accepting that we received a report that we're now that we're asking staff to reflect upon and bring back actions to us at a future time.
Thank you, Alderman. That would be my interpretation, but we'll go to Director Menser. Ron?
Good evening. Thank you. And if you just could give me a little latitude here. I waved my hand. You didn't catch me when everybody was saying all the nice things at the beginning of the meeting. And I wanted to, I feel very gracious, or a lot of gratitude for all the very nice and obviously very heartfelt comments from the City Council. It means a lot to me that the City Council appreciates the work that comes out of community development, and in particular what I do for the city. But I have to tell you, I'm as thankful as anybody for the opportunity to work in this community, be part of this community. Consistently, the City Council has always supported and listened to staff, not just community development, but certainly community development staff and our recommendations and the guidance that we provide to the City Council. Always gets a fair consideration from the City Council. When we need resources and we provide the backup for that, the City Council consistently supports the additional resources that we need to continue to do good work for the community. And I think I am very, very fortunate to work in a community where the staff works together extremely well, and the staff and the elected officials and the staff and the appointed bodies work as a team. The mayor regularly talks about doing local government right, and I truly believe that Warrenville does local government right, and I am I can't tell you how lucky I feel to be part of that and have spent 27 years of my life, almost half my life. Every year it gets closer to half my life. I'm chasing that, but it's getting real close now.
Been there.
City of Warrenville. And I wouldn't change anything. It's been a great ride, and I look forward to working with the City Council to continue to do good things that I know will make a long-lasting positive impact in the community. So with that, I'll try to transition into addressing Alderman Anderson's questions. The way I look at the document that was prepared for the city, the Housing Action Plan, there are a series of findings in the action plan, and then there's some very specific recommendations that build off of those findings, you might say. And I think from at least a staff perspective, I think the findings are based on actual data and input and careful review of what's happening in the community, dovetailing that with a clear understanding of how the community's demographics are evolving. So I think the findings are very accurate. They're things that I think it would be hard to argue. Warrenville's population is aging. half of the homeowners in the city of Warrenville now are 55 years of age and older. The population of 65 and older adults has more than doubled over the last 10 years in the community. So I think those are some examples of findings. And I think from my perspective, I would strongly encourage the city council to endorse those findings. The second part of the motion is to allow staff or authorize staff to begin to look for opportunities to implement the recommendations in the report, but in the context of both our existing department work plan and in whatever future work plans the department presents to the city council and the city council is supportive of. And a lot of those findings, a good one, I know that Alderman Anderson brought it up at the last meeting, concern about hiring an additional consultant, whether that made sense, whether it was needed. And at this point in time, that's not in our work program. It's not in this year's budget. Certainly, if that was something that we felt from a staff perspective made sense looking forward, and given all the other priorities that are going on, if it was one of the higher priorities from a staff perspective, we would incorporate something like that into our next work or next year or future annual work program for the city council's consideration. And we would certainly need to prepare most likely a decision package, and that would be carefully evaluated, and a decision would have to be made by the city council of whether or not we would have the authorization, or the money would be budgeted and the authorization given to move forward that type of a detailed recommendation that would require some significant investment of both time and money by the city. So I think most of the recommendations are, from my perspective, a staff perspective, who was very involved in the analysis and worked closely with the group that helped the city through this process, that I think they're by and large very sound recommendations, but it's not that all of a sudden, because we have this report, we're going to drop everything else that's a priority for the department and jump on all those recommendations. That's just not possible, and that would be irresponsible from my perspective. So it will be something that, as opportunities present themselves, we'll bring forward some additional recommendations to, maybe move forward with some of those, and the city council, in my opinion, and would have some detailed discussion and make a decision on whether or not they felt at that point in time whether it made sense to implement specific recommendations. The one final comment I would make is that sitting through and listening to the discussion last week, it seemed as if there was some real question by multiple city council members of really what is this whole concept of missing middle. And that's one of the recommendations that the consultant made. From a professional standpoint, I'm very familiar with it. I've been to a lot of professional development seminar type things, and there's a lot of discussion of that is something that is missing, not just in Warrenville, but throughout a lot of suburban and metropolitan areas where it once was very prominent and easy to build that type of housing. It's virtually impossible in most locations now because of the way the zoning and building codes are structured. So I would suggest or offer, if the city council feels it would be beneficial, I'd be more than happy to develop a brief kind of informational presentation that would talk a little bit more about what missing middle housing means and why it is of some value to the community, and make that presentation at an upcoming community development committee meeting.
Thank you, Ron. And I apologize for missing your signal earlier. Take my glasses off and I don't see as well in the distance as I do up close. So I apologize for that. Alderman Anderson, back to you.
Oh, that's what I had hoped, and really appreciate it. Thank you, Director Menster, and I just so appreciate all of your work, and just a joy getting to know you, and proud to say that you're our leader. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Ashauer, comment?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Berry.
I think that Ron's recommendation to, in the future, do a short presentation about that missing middle is probably a very good idea. I think it would be helpful for not only us as the aldermen, but also anybody else that would be viewing this, any of the citizens of Warrenville, so they will have a better understanding of what it is that we are talking about. So I think that's a great recommendation. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Davalos?
Yeah, I just had a couple things to say as somebody who was on that team as the liaison from the city council. Ron was on that, Natalia was on that, I was on that. I think Bob Pevels was the one from Plan Commission who attended. So those were really, if I'm remembering correctly, the only 4 elected officials / staff that were there. So it's going to be a learning process for everybody. And as I think about it, I'm now that we have it, and if we do pass the idea to accept the findings, I can just almost in my head see staff members and Plan Commission members that are already doing research, thinking about things, looking at zoning and different things, that are looking up missing middle, that are doing all the things that our staff does so extraordinarily well. And I think that will be the exciting part, to have it all come back and to see what ideas are generated through staff, and then when the council gets involved in that. So I think that's what that team hoped would happen. And I also have called Ron before the last meeting about the missing middle concept and exactly what it was, and he was extraordinarily helpful in explaining that. So I would love to have him do that for the whole council, because it's fascinating. And we're already doing it in little ways that I didn't even understand. So I just think if we can pass this tonight, then this will just open up the examination of a whole lot of new ideas, a whole lot of new thinking that maybe we haven't been exposed to, or so I'm excited about it. But I'm glad that Alderman Anderson brought it up, just so we all are clear about the future. And I think this is one of those findings, one of those reports that will not sit on the shelf. It will be in front of everybody through the next years, to be thinking about how it fits for us, and how do we want to look at development going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Goodman?
Yes, I appreciate Ron's suggestion about a future presentation on this, and I think it'll serve more than one purpose. I think in addition to maybe helping all of us get our head around some of the terminology that's used here, I think maybe it'll give some of us aldermen a chance to ask more questions about the general concepts involved in the future exercise of these ideas as they apply to the city council and our own policy-making decisions. And I think the key example I would mention has to do with changes to our zoning ordinances. Because over the last few years, as I've read about housing, and I've attended some of the Metropolitan Planning Council events, that's a phrase that gets tossed around a lot, that suburbs are going to need to amend our zoning ordinances to try and meet the future needs of our residents, and to stay current, and to allow for younger people to move into our community, and to shape the future of Warrenville the way that we want it to be. But I am quite certain that how that ordinance is going to be changed, and what will need to go into that change, is something that Ron has thought about a lot more than me, and knows a lot more about than I do. And so hearing his thoughts and having a chance for us to ask him questions that will help shape our policy decisions sounds like a really good use of our time. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Krischel?
Yeah, I'm thankful for the clarification to Director Menser. I think that helps out. And I kind of looked at this as a framework, or maybe a guiding principles as we start to look at directions in the future. And so I think having this would help us be able to make those decisions as a starting point for conversation. So Again, thanks for your clarification, and yeah, I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Widener.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Alderman Anderson bringing it up, and also the clarification by Director Menser. I think the report is a good one from the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning Council, and I think it offers a lot of great food for thought, but there are those amongst us here that understand our community the best and its characteristics and what we truly appreciate about it. And I think we have to, take the suggestions from groups like the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning Council and also kind of mix them in and understand them in accordance with our own understanding and I guess strategic plans for our community. So thank you for the clarification and thank you for bringing it up. I look forward to additional thoughts and comments on this as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And Alderman Wilson.
I think the report that we saw and looked at and read was very, very good. And it's a report that should tweak us to the point that we need to look at things. But what they said also does not necessarily everything apply to Warrenville. We are a unique town, city, and we have different circumstances. But I think it puts us on the curve that we do have to start looking at these things. Everything they suggested will not work in Warrenville. I feel confident of that. But the point is that let us go ahead and begin and accept this, that there are differences in Warrenville that we need to take a look at and take a look at it individually from what they suggested. I do not think we're at the point where we need to hire another corporation or something to look at it. We are smart enough, and Ron's here, and he can direct us to look at the right things at the right time. So I'm very much in favor of this. I think it's important, and I think as long as we are able to do the putting it into what we look at as what we need in Warrenville, we're not going to be dictated by something happened in some other community. So I accept it. I think it's very, very good. And I think that Ron will lead us on the point here that we could start looking at this in depth. So I thank it very, very much. I think it's extremely important for us, and I approve it wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. And my last comment would just be that over the course of the last 27 years, it's not unusual for us to be discussing a proposal by Ron that takes us in a new direction and gives us the opportunity to solve problems that we knew were there, but we never really had the impetus or the ability to deal with. So Ron, thanks for bringing this up, leading us again in a direction that's going to make Warrenville a better place. And thank you to the Aldermen for recognizing the opportunity and taking it on and moving forward with it, all with the best interest of the community at heart. So thank you all. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Ashar.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Wilson.
My own fun. Okay, aye. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm an aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Motion carries. The item is approved. That concludes our business for this evening. We have no regular agenda items. We have nothing under unfinished business. I don't see anything for new business. We have no need for a closed session. We have, however, the need for one final motion. Who would like to do the honors?
Alderman Goodman, I move to adjourn.
Alderman Wilson, I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Our final roll call, please, clerk.
Alderman Chrisell.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Davalos,
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. We are adjourned for this evening. Thank you for your attention this evening, and we'll see you next time around.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good night, all.